that they are, there's a real person in there, and she goes back into their lives to teach them how to be themselves, and how to take I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Take their life and just go with it.
Yes,
so
Faye.
Take over, please. Take over.
Good try.
Yeah.
Look, as a human, we get caught up in life and we get stuck on that hamster wheel, and we go from 9 to 5 or whatever your hours are on that hamster wheel, and we lose touch with ourselves and who we really are. And one of the things that I do is connect people back to who they really are. So break down the barriers and the blockages of your current life. What's stopping you from moving forward and creating the life that you desire and that you deserve? And through that, it's all about awareness. To become aware, you can then, once you're aware, you can then start to make those changes. And it's not just about the thought process. Energetically, we all of the trauma and our past events and our experiences and the social conformities that we think we need to follow all create blockages. And it's about coming back to self and asking yourself, well, what do I want? What do I need? I mean, when was the last time you asked yourself, what do I want?
I don't know. I just seriously, I don't know. What do I want? I know what I want, but asking myself, what do I want, is a different thing again. It's the knowing and then asking yourself truly what you want. I remember asking someone, what do they want once? And they said, what do you mean, what do I want? I've never been asked.
Exactly. You've got to ask the question.
Yeah. So that's an interesting one. And you said awareness, and awareness is a really important part of who we are, being aware of who we are and being true to ourselves. And that, a lot of people I see conforming to make other people happy, but are they happy themselves?
It all starts with self. And if you're not happy, how can you make somebody else happy?
Exactly.
It's like, how can you love somebody else if you don't love you? Or how do you expect somebody to love you if you're not loving you?
And that's another question again, is if someone says that, oh, I love myself, it's not a conceited love, it's a respect for who you are and what you do and the person you are. It's really important to know that it's not an ego thing, because if you don't fill your own cup up first and love yourself, you can't do the right thing by others.
If you don't love you, how can you give love to another? If your cup is not filled with joy, how can you give joy to somebody else? If you are not present with you, how can you be present with those around you? And if you've got family, if you've got children, like if you're stuck in your head in that chaos that is going on constantly 9 to 5, and even once you get home, how can you be present with your children and your family and your partner? So it's about coming in, realizing what all of that is, and you can't just turn it off. It's not about just flicking the switch, and you've got to learn how to do it, to be able to put that aside and recognize through that awareness how to be present with self and others.
And you sort of hit a chord, because you see people, everyone has these electronic devices and they're just glued to them all of the time. And even when they get home, there's the phone sitting there while they're cooking the dinner, or the phone sitting there while they're sitting eating their dinner, or the phone sitting there, or that device is sitting there while they're watching television, and they're constantly being distracted by that instead of being present for the surrounding environment. And I see this often.
It's become people's lifeline.
And, you know, when you go walking and or you're driving and you see people and they're walking along the street and they're just playing, they're on their phone, you know, using those thumbs. I can't use the thumbs when I'm sending messages because it'll be all googly gop. It's usually googly gop anyway, but, you know, and they're just doing this with their thumbs and sending messages instead of bringing in having a conversation. What's happened to the true conversation of yesterday?
I'm hearing you, and I've got teenagers and they're on their phone, and there's part of bringing up, you know, teenagers that they need to remain connected and with their friends because they've all got phones and they've got to move along with technology, but there's a time where it gets put down, so we can actually connect and have a conversation.
Yeah, and it's really important that you do that, but I don't see it a lot. I don't see it a lot in families. There's just all this stuff, and it's there, constantly there, interrupting everything, the presence of them being present for everyone. How do you change that? What do you do when society is so big on social media?
It comes down to choice. Do you like being stuck in your head constantly, running on that hamster wheel, or would you like some peace and some quiet and some connection with self? There is a choice in every second of the day, and everybody has it. They can make a choice, whether it's subconscious or conscious, and this is where awareness comes into it. Oh, I've been on my phone too much, or I'm walking in the house. It's time for me to put my electronics down and actually connect with those around me, or connect with self. You know, if I can recommend something to everybody listening, is do a digital detox. 3 days, no phone. You know, tell all those people that you need to, hey, I'm turning off my phone. There's no social media. Everything is off, and just be present with you. Get out into nature. Go for a walk. Connect with the sun and the trees and the earth. Go to the beach. Whatever it is that works for you, get out and connect. Take your shoes off and connect with the earth, and recalibrate your body and your mind.
That's pretty difficult for a lot of people to do. I mean, when I go for a walk, I take my phone, and the reason I take my phone, I might listen to an audio book or a podcast or something like that. But the reason really I take my phone is to take photos, and I'm constantly taking photos. And my phone's the easiest thing to carry around. It's easier than a camera to carry when you're walking, but I don't carry it around the house all the time. It's there, and a lot of the time it's interesting. I don't know whether I have a free day, electronic free day. I have to think about that now. Woo!
So I challenge you, Faye.
Thank you.
Start with 6 hours.
Oh, I can do that when I'm
asleep.
Start with
1 hour even. You know, no, not just sleep. But if you don't try, if you don't challenge yourself, you're not going to know how beautiful that can feel.
Oh, look, I can go and sit outside on a beautiful night and just sit there and just go, oh, this is amazing. I can do that. Or when I'm walking and I'll look at some scenery and I'll think, I am so lucky that I can actually see this. And it might be the same scenery every day, but it's different each time I see it. The light, the clouds, the water, the wind, the sun, whatever it might be, the light, the daylight, the darkness, whatever it is always different. And there's always something that I just loved taking photos of the same things, only in a different, well, for me, it's a different perspective. People that see them might see them as the same thing all the time, but they're not.
Yeah. So that's, if you can't do a digital detox, I think that's a beautiful way to connect with self, is having those moments of gratitude. And you've just expressed beautifully what it feels to you like to connect with nature, the things that fill up your cup. And it might not be nature, it might be your children laughing, or it might be achieving something, but having those moments of gratitude connect you to self.
And when I see a flower and its beauty, I think, oh, got to get a photo of that. So I've got to go and find my phone to take a photo of it. Or a bird sitting on a flower, you know, just taking a photo of the moment, capturing the moment. And I took a photo of a rose this morning, and I thought, oh, I know how it smells because it smells absolutely divine. And I wanted to smell it from the photo. I'm thinking, oh, Faye, please,
You
really.
haven't developed smell-o-vision yet.
No, but it's just having that appreciation for beauty. And I love to watch things grow, and I love to strike things and start, you know, creating a plant from just a little cutting or something like that. That's what I love doing. So I suppose that's my out in digital, and I can just sit outside and just listen to the birds and look at the trees and look at the sky and feel the sun, and it's just beautiful.
And that's going to be different for everyone, and it's fantastic that that's what works for you. So finding what works for you is what you need to do, and it might be getting out into nature, it might be meditation, it might be listening to music or exercising or reading a book. Find what works for you.
Yeah, and I always say, when I used to teach exercise, I'd say, find the exercise that you enjoy and have fun with. Don't go and persecute yourself and do stuff that you don't like doing, because it becomes a chore and you stop doing it. But if you enjoy doing it, it will continue. It's like, I see this man, and he'd have to be in his mid-80s, and he runs every morning. Doesn't matter what the weather is, he runs. He doesn't really run, he shuffles, because I can walk faster than he can run, but that doesn't matter. And this morning I saw him, and I thought, I'm going to catch you, I'm going to walk past you. And I did, and I said good morning, and I said, you're an inspiration. And he said, this old fellow. And I said, you know, it's like, what is it? He's just an inspiration. I see him, he goes and he gets to a certain spot, he gets onto the sand and he does his push-ups and his crunches, then he gets up and he goes again. And every day he does that. And I think, you're an inspiration to many.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I want to have a conversation with him. I keep on thinking, oh, I've got to have a conversation with you to know where you come from and what inspires you to get up in the freezing cold and do what you do, because he does it on his own. And I think that when I'm that age, and I hope I'm running faster than that. No, I don't run, I walk. But he has a go.
Yeah.
And that's what matters, you know?
It does. Got to give it a crack.
Yeah. And people say hello to him all the time. They know him, you know, and it's just a beautiful thing to see. But it really shone out for me today to say something to him, and said, steady people win the race eventually. So, yeah. And
you find you've made his day. He needed to hear that from you today.
Yeah. But he made my day by just seeing him. But it's just things like that I get to appreciate. Being out in nature, but just doing what I love, walking.
The biggest gratitudes I find are in the smallest of things.
Yeah. And it's really, really important that that's what, we do. We be grateful for whatever it is that is happening in our lives. And gratitude is a really important part of who we are.
Definitely.
Gratitude is a really important part of who we are and what we do. So, yeah, it's, I don't know. It's amazing, really. So what else would you say to people to create an awareness of, they might be struggling, having a hard time doing what they're doing? What is it that you would say?
Look, as human beings, we want to help others, and we do a lot of other things for other people, and we forget what we need to do for ourselves. So using the word no is very difficult. So I would recommend, in whichever moment it is, whether it be at work or at home, or a situation that pops up, just ask yourself, how does that serve me?
Yeah.
How does that serve me in moving forward with what I need or what I want? How does that serve me?
Yeah. Yeah. And be honest with yourself.
And I think that's one of the hardest things to do, is actually be honest with yourself, because we help others to give ourselves gratitude. It's the ego that's talking. It's the ego that wants that recognition when we help others, instead of coming from a place of love and energetic support. It's we're feeding our wants, needs, and desires from an ego perspective, not from a self-love perspective.
Yeah, that's true. So just be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself, and be happy. Doesn't take much to be happy, does it?
Well, I think people have forgotten what happy actually is. They've got a version of happy, but is that really happy, or is that just survival? A lot of humanity are just in survival mode. They're getting through the day. They're running that rat race, and their head is just above water. And it's about stopping and realizing, well, it's time for me to not just live in survival mode, because we look at the stress rates, we look at anxiety, and we look at depression, and those rates are just going up and up and up. And that's because we're not taking the time to decompress, to let go, to have fun, and to connect back with self. And at the end of the day, you have to be responsible for you. It's time to be responsible for self.
Yeah. And if that, if we don't take that responsibility, then no one else is going to do it for us, are they?
It's no one else's job, it's yours.
Yeah.
Be responsible for yourself.
Yeah.
And when you do that, others will see it and they'll go, oh, I want some of that. Show your children how to be responsible for self.
Yeah. So true. We've got to go for a break. I think, that people come on and they say, well, what are we going to talk about for 2 hours? So, don't worry about it, but let's look at it and let's share something specific about what you actually do and how you come to work with your clients and how they relate to you.
Look, my clients find me. I don't need to go out searching. They either get referred or they come across me and go, oh, I want some of that, which is always beautiful.
It is nice, isn't it?
And we just start with a chat, and we figure out what's holding them back, what's not working in their life, and we just take it from there. And those that I have worked with, their marriages have been saved, their businesses have been saved, their connection, they have saved themselves. They have found who they are just through the process of coming back into self. And, every client gets homework. They have to do their homework, and that'll be meditation of some description or an exercise of visualization. Connecting with the earth every day is a must. But we also look at the physical form. So it's a holistic approach. It's physical, mental, and emotional. And from a physical perspective, what are you doing with your body? Are you moving it every day? Are you eating right? Are you drinking enough water? What physical injuries do we need to start addressing, and why are they there? Is it a past life physical injury? Because they can, when you go to the doctor, you've got an issue and you go to the doctor and the doctor goes, there's nothing wrong with you. and you do all of those tests, well, it's because it's an energetic issue. It is not a physical issue. Now, I won't say all the time. Sometimes you've got to keep diving and going down the rabbit holes to look at other physical elements to that. But there's definitely energetic reasons behind some of those medical issues. So physically, from a mental perspective, okay, what is my mindset like? Am I stuck in the negative thought processes? Because the human mind is hardwired to focus on that negative first, because it's about survival. I've got to survive. So let's shift that mindset. Let's look at it from a different perspective. And that different perspective brings so many aha moments. And then emotionally, well, what am I addressing or not addressing? Because how often do you sit down and go, okay, I need to emotionally look at everything that has affected me today?
I don't.
So what you're doing is accumulating. All of those emotions are getting pushed to a side, and your emotional body, which is one of the layers of your field, is filling up and filling up. And eventually that becomes full. And when it's full, it overflows. So you have an emotional breakdown. Mentally, if you're not processing all of the elements that you need to process, your mental bucket's going to be full. So you're going to have a mental breakdown, and then that leads to the physical breakdown. So it's a holistic approach. It's, you look at a runner, an athlete, or a marathon runner, they're going to go out and train and run, but if they don't stretch afterwards or prepare before the race, or eat the right food, then they're not going to be prepared in the right way to perform at their optimal level. So it's holistic approach.
And it's interesting that you say athletes or runners or marathon runners or whatever. They visualize the race before they even start. So they go through their race, and that can be an emotional thing as well as a mental thing for them to be able to achieve what they want to achieve. They visualize it first to see themselves get to the end of whatever it is that they're doing.
Definitely. Look, your energy flows where your attention goes. Pay attention to it, and the energy is going to flow there. So if you're focused on positive outcomes, that's where you're going to be headed. If you're stuck in fear or in a negative perspective, that's where the energy is going to flow. You're just going to create a block. You're going to get stuck there.
And there are a lot of people stuck there but don't realize they're stuck there because their awareness isn't around any of that. They're just stuck in this place and they can't shift it. So they can't then look at it holistically and say, I need help. I need Larissa to help me to move forward and help me remove whatever it is that I'm stuck in back here so that I can be up here.
Yeah, so the body's in survival mode and the mind is in survival mode too. It's the, oh, I'll do that later. I can't get to that now because there's no room. No. You've got to create space for self. And if you're not creating time for you to connect with self, then you're going to be leading yourself down that path of physical, mental, or emotional breakdown.
It's a bit like, when you fill up a cupboard with food and you can't put any more in it, and you've got it stacked so high, you can't put any more in it. It's the same sort of thing with your body. You've got all this information, be it good, bad, or indifferent, and it just keeps piling up and piling up. And if you don't deal with it, then it comes to a crashing halt at some stage.
It does. So energetically, what I do and what my healers that work for me do is that they clear out the field, they clear out that bucket, they clear out the pantry, so to speak, to give the individual space to then be able to address what needs to be addressed.
And they always say, clear some space if you want new clothes, clear some space in your wardrobe so that you've got room to put some new things in there instead of just shoving things in. I'm not guilty of that.
When was the last time you cleaned out the fridge, all the jars in the back,
I don't really have a lot of those, but it's the closed cupboard.
It's the concept, yeah.
and so it's the same with your mind. Your physical ability gets squashed because you can't cope, because there's so much going on in there, you don't know where to turn.
Every thought, feeling, emotion, situation, event you have ever experienced lives in your energetic field. And unless you have cleared it out, it's going to get heavy. You're going to be carrying around that baggage. So it's time to get rid of that baggage, drop the baggage away. Let's clear it out so you can have some space to actually, have that time to ask yourself, well, what do I want? What do I need? Where am I going? What's my purpose? Why am I here? And to do that, you've got to recover first.
You
so
do.
Energetically.
Yeah. And so what would be a suggestion that you would make for someone to start to clean out what's going on? Come to you, but what could they do if they didn't know about what you could do for them? What could they do for themselves to start the process?
So give yourself some time each day just to be with you. If you've got a calendar, time block it. Half an hour, whatever it is, and either meditate, give some exercise, read a book, start some journaling, write down how it is that you're feeling and what you're processing or not processing throughout the day. Make it a gratitude journal. What are you grateful for? That has a massive impact on your mindset, just focusing on what's going right. What are the positive things that's going right? And create your joy list. What fills up your cup? What fills up your cup? And do one thing on your joy list every day. And don't do the same thing every day. Change it up. That's a really good way to start looking at you and what makes you happy. Because if you're not happy, then there's some change. You need to make some changes.
Yeah, and I think that joy list is a really good thing. I mean, I have time blocked out for myself, a half an hour during the day, just a half an hour for me, and then early morning until it's time to start work, that's my time for exercise and meditating and doing all that sort of stuff before the day really starts, the work day.
I'd be lost without meditation. Every morning I start with meditation. I go from my bed into my meditation chair, so I've got my own special space with my crystals and just what makes me comfortable, my cushion and my blanket if it's cold, and I sit in meditation. And that might be 20 minutes, it might be an hour, it might be 2 hours, but I give myself what I need.
Okay.
It might not be what I want because I've got other stuff to do. I'm running a business.
Yeah, but it's what you need at the time. Do you ever find yourself in that place of going for more time than you expected?
Yeah, quite often.
Quite often?
Yeah.
Okay. I usually only allow 15 minutes for meditation, and I find that quite sufficient for me. And a lot of it's deep breathing. And I was listening to someone the other day, and who was it? I can't remember now. And they said there's breath meditation, visual meditation, and spiritual meditation. So there's the three of them. What's your thoughts on that?
Look, there's many different types of meditation, and there's not just three. There's probably 20 or 30 different types of meditation that you can do. But it's about finding what works for you. And for me, mantras is what works for me. And I like to repeat Sanskrit mantras just because it gets out of my head. I don't have I know what the Sanskrit word means, but I don't have the human, like my English language version of it. So I'm not giving a bias or perspective to it. And that allows me just to completely get out of the head and be focused on what I'm doing. But it's about finding what works for you. And, a 20-minute meditation is equivalent to 4 hours sleep. Now, I don't recommend you substitute one for the other, but when you come into those deeper levels of brain waves, the body is allowed to come into that rest and recovery state instead of being stuck on fight or flight, with the hormones pumping through the body. So think about when was the last time you actually gave yourself permission for the body to come in rest and recovery state?
Good question.
Apart from sleep, because when you go to bed, you've either got your phone in your hand or you're still thinking about what it is that you've done from the day.
Try not to do any of that.
Good.
I think.
But a large chunk of society do. They still have their phone in their hand and they're still going over the proceeds of the day.
Yeah, I might sometimes. I try to shut off from that before I go to bed because I want to go to bed to go to sleep. Whereas if I keep my mind going, I will never go to sleep. It just goes and goes and goes and goes. So I work on the process of, relax before I go to sleep, have a cup of tea or whatever it might be. And if I can't go to sleep, I might do a meditation, or I might listen to a podcast, not something that's over the top or stimulating, just something that's light. But a lot of the time it's meditation, just some breath work and things like that to go to sleep.
Breath work is so powerful to relax the body and the mind, and I 100% recommend people do breath work regularly, even throughout the day. From an anxiety or depression perspective, it just resets the body. It resets that fight or flight and allows the body to function how it's meant to function instead of being so highly strung.
And, when you're driving along in the car and you're stuck in traffic and you're thinking, I need to get to that place at this time and I'm stuck in this traffic. I find myself these days doing breath work and relaxing and thinking, I've got no control over this. It will be what it will be.
Yeah, and I think that mindset is what really helps. You have no control, so you've just got to go with the flow.
Yeah, and it does work. It's like I'm much calmer now driving because I can now think about, okay, it's cool, let it go. It's okay. If someone wants to rush in front of me, I used to be quite abusive. Now I figure, nah, you're not going to get anywhere any faster because I'm not getting anywhere any faster. So it
and
doesn't.
That's beautiful awareness. That's awareness. Yeah. You have a choice to react or respond.
Yeah.
And when you take a breath in a moment, in that moment, that's where you get to choose. Am I going to react how I've always reacted, or am I going to respond differently?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a choice.
And it is that reaction that we usually have when we could take a breath. If we're in, conflict, we can step back from that conflict and assess it and say, well, okay, this is the actual issue here, not the emotion. Remove the emotion from it and look at the issue that you need to deal with. Go away. If you need to go away for half an hour or so and come back and work through the process, do so. Yeah. It's not it could be a life and death situation. It could be, it doesn't matter. But you have to start taking control of your emotions so they're not taking control of you.
Yeah, and I think a really good question to ask yourself, especially in times of conflict or stress and heightened situations, and I don't mean life or death ones, but ask yourself, what would love do in this situation? What would love do? How would love react? How would love respond? And by giving yourself that moment of reflection, you're going to change your response and your reaction to whatever it is that's occurring. It's going to soften.
That's amazing. I love the way you've said that. What would love do? Because we don't stop to think about that, do we? Ever, really? Because we're in a heightened emotional state a lot of the time. And so we never stop to think about what would love do.
Yeah, and ask yourself that. Well, what would love do for me right now?
It's interesting. One tip before we go, because the news is coming up and it's Sam's on in just after the news with Monday Mash. So one tip that you could give the listeners, what they could do to start being aware of how they're feeling.
Give yourself the time and the space to become aware and actually ask yourself, well, how am I feeling about this? What does it mean? Where does it come from? Is it my thoughts or emotions, or have these been projected upon me by my upbringing or family or society or whatever? Yes, just stop and ask yourself the question.
Beautiful. How can they get in contact with you, Larissa?
So my Facebook page or my website is saramatu.com. There's some discovery call buttons there that you can book a time to have a chat, and we can see what it is that you need, and if it's worth it. Well, it's all going to be worth it. It's whether you're ready to step up.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that.